Things haven't been smooth for the heavyweight champ Francis Ngannou for quite a bit, and it seems like his eyes are set on outboxing the Gypsy King. But before you get your hopes up for the clash of the Titans, there's a couple things we need to remember. So, how likely is the fight, and what does the big man Dana White think of it? Keep watching to find out. First, Dana White on the potential fight. It's clear that the head of the UFC hasn't been thrilled with Ngannou's plans to box. So it's not surprising then that White's not optimistic about the UFC heavyweight's title facing Tyson Fury. During an appearance on the Pat McAfee show, Dana was asked about Francis Ngannou chumming it up inside the ring with Fury as the two stars discussed a potential crossover bout. This came right after Fury's win over Dillian Whyte on April 23rd in front of a sold-out crowd at Wembley Stadium in London. But before you hype yourself up too much, White cautioned fans to keep their expectations in check. The fight isn't a lock yet, and the president of the promotion isn't too big on crossover bouts. And if that wasn't enough, Fury's beaten a lot of people in boxing, and Dana doesn't think Ngannou's on that level, just simply put. So why isn't Dana interested? When the former UFC lightweight champion Conor McGregor went into the boxing ring with Floyd Mayweather in August 2017, White was participating in the most profitable crossover bout of all time. Even though McGregor was knocked out in the 10th round, the fight was a huge success, grossing 4.3 million pay-per-view sales. So it begs the question, why isn't Dana interested in repeating that experience? When asked, his response was pretty straightforward. He called the matchup stupid. He considered it not only a waste of time and money, but also everyone's energy. Although Dana did understand the appeal of trying and all that, he just wasn't into it. White was then asked if he was concerned about Ngannou's legacy, or if consenting to a boxing gloves contest would harm Ngannou's chances. Boxing is a massive advantage for Tyson Fury. White said, boxing, Ngannou just wrestled Ciryl Gane. If you know anything about fighting, it's a silly conversation. Next, re-signing with UFC without Fury fight. Not an option. Seems like no one's budging, as Francis Ngannou remains steadfast in his contract requests to the UFC. Coming up after successfully defending his heavyweight title against Ciryl Gane through unanimous decision at UFC 270 in January, there were some revelations. Following that fight, Ngannou stated openly that he had major issues with the promotion, specifically how he'd been treated as a champion. But more recently, the champ says that there have been some efforts by high officials to settle any difference. Even though that they've been working on it, the Cameroonian feels uncertain whether his differences with the UFC could be truly resolved. He said that there's a lot of work to be done here, but he did admit that the issues are business related, not personal. Though the Predator has already mentioned several difficulties with the UFC, including money and promotion, professional boxing appears to be the largest roadblock to their continued cooperation. Ngannou has stated frequently that he wants to fight heavyweight champion Tyson Fury, who's clearly interested too. Indeed, the UFC champ sat right ringside for Fury's fight. What surprised some was that afterwards, the Gypsy King invited Ngannou into the ring, where the two effectively cut a promo for the proposed super fight. With that in mind, the UFC champ reiterates his prior claims that he won't be re-signing with the promotion unless they allow him to pursue boxing as well. And now, it wouldn't be the first time. According to the champ, if there's no discussion about this clause in the contract now, there won't ever be one. And as it stands, the UFC has made this exception before. But for Ngannou, the organization appears to be chilly about the idea. The bout, like the one between superstars Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor in 2017, makes perfect financial sense. In this case, though, with Ngannou's contract expiring and free agency looming, the heavyweight champion can simply wait out the UFC and then seek the fight with Fury next year, with no cut from the UFC. Many have actually recommended that Ngannou should do precisely that to maximize his compensation for the fight. However, the heavyweight champion has stated that he does want to re-sign with the UFC because while he still wants to box, he still has major fights left in the UFC. It's anyone's guess now whether the UFC will reach an agreement. For the time being, Ngannou is forced on the promotion, and no official negotiations have taken place between him and Fury. Rest assured, though, the Predator firmly believes that he will meet the Gypsy King in the ring one day, and it won't just be for a friendly chat. Next, Eddie Hearn has some big doubts. Eddie Hearn is suspicious of Tyson Fury's retirement, as well as a super fight with Francis Ngannou. With Ngannou at ringside, Fury retained his WBC and ring heavyweight titles. And following his spectacular victory, he announced his retirement from professional boxing. And then, of course, comes the setup of the boxing fight of the ages. But the Matchroom Sports boss isn't taking the Gypsy King at his word on either count. Hearn's not alone in this skepticism, as many have questioned if Fury will stick by his word with lucrative fights against Joshua and/or Usyk on the horizon. And at only 33 years old, the boxer still has plenty of time to reconsider. And when it comes to the fighters themselves, it's a complete mismatch. The 6'9" Gypsy King's a skilled boxer who's perfected his exceptional skills for more than 2 decades, making him one of the most successful heavyweight boxers of his generation. Ngannou's skill set's pretty solid for MMA, but unrefined for boxing. Fury would probably toy around with his opponent until he decides it's time to take him out, as Mayweather did with the vastly outmatched McGregor. Now, defeating Tyson Fury, It's not easy, but it's doable. So the baddest man on the planet is set on facing the other baddest man, and when he does, he intends to wow the world. Ngannou went on to declare that he has a 70% chance of fighting Fury next, but making the match happen and winning the fight are two very different things. Though several hybrid ideas for the fight would have been floated, such as battling in MMA gloves instead of boxing gloves, or a cage instead of a ring, the bout would ultimately take place within boxing rules, in favor of Fury. On the other hand, the Cameroonian's thin gloves might work in his favor. The lack of padding increases the impact of a punch. It's also worth noting that Ngannou isn't particularly quick with his hands. That a part of White's dilemma against Fury, who was able to sidestep White's powerful blows and hit his own nearly at will since he saw everything coming at him, you might be thinking. Ngannou has great knockout power. Though, well, while Fury isn't known for his knockout power, he can definitely punch. Just look at that fantastic single uppercut knockout he delivered to Wilder in the front of the sold-out stadium. And as Ngannou concedes, Fury's performance against White demonstrates that the Gypsy King is still improving. The Cameroonian was open about how he'd been studying Fury's style for a few years and believed he knew how to take control of the fight had it taken place. However, not many people agree with him on that one. One of the most common objections to the fight is the perceived one-sidedness of the fight. Odds makers established the line for a potential bout between the two heavyweights at 600 in Fury's advantage, and those odds have risen to 1,500 in Fury's favor, meaning a nearly 94% win probability. But the odds are wrong for Ngannou, and he'll prove it to anybody who doubts him. Finally, Junior Dos Santos on Francis Ngannou's limited technique. Can Francis Ngannou upset one of boxing's all-time greats in the ring? Junior Dos Santos, who fought alongside Ngannou in the Octagon, doesn't think the UFC heavyweight champion has a chance. Dos Santos formerly dominated the UFC heavyweight class with his quick boxing, knocking out Fabricio Werdum and Cain Velasquez and Frank Mir. After losing the crown, he continued to impress people with stoppage victories over Mark Hunt, Tai Tuivasa, and Derek Lewis. Dos Santos discussed the potential boxing match between Ngannou and Fury on this week's episode of MMA Fighting Portuguese Language Podcast, Trocacao Franca. Right from the start, the Brazilian was skeptical that the match would even take place. Ngannou and his camp argue that when his contract expires in 2023, he'll become a free agent, despite the fact that he still has the UFC heavyweight title. Dos Santos, himself a former UFC champion, is pretty skeptical of Ngannou's chances of leaving the organization as a champion. During the UFC reign, Ngannou always wanted to box, but never had the same opportunity as previous two-division UFC champion Conor McGregor. And that's a wrap for this video. Who do you think would come out of this banger with the win? Let us know in the comment section below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this one. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.